Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. It was finally the day of the long-awaited Chunin exams, and the entire village was bustling excited for the day's events to begin. Meanwhile for the demon pair, it was finally the moment of truth. They would finally meet the people they were preparing themselves for years. Unfortunately both of them were still resting in bed, instead of preparing themselves for the exam. Of course Naruto's most hated enemy would soon change that. Fing sunlight, he mentally screamed, with the rays of light searing his eyes. Konoha gates. Sarai finally returned, she doesn't look any different, a cloaked woman thought while staring past the gates of Konoha only a couple dozen yards away from them. Sensei, a teen boy called out to the woman, knocking her out of her thoughts. Hi, let's go, she ordered, and she and her team finished their journey to Konoha. Please state your business. If you are here for the Chunin exams, please present your permission slips, Kotetsu ordered as soon as the team reached the threshold of the village. The blue-eyed woman narrowed her unseen eyes in annoyance, before presenting her slips. He looked suspiciously at the slips, before his eyes widened at the names. So, the traitor's return, he thought with digest. Everything seems to be in order. Please remember that you must follow Konoha rules while you and your team are here for the exams. Welcome to Konoha, he said, giving the slips back to the woman, letting them proceed unhindered. The team nodded at his greeting and went into the streets, quickly engulfed by the crowds. Hey Kotetsu, who were they? Izumo asked. Just a bunch of traitors, that now represent Whirlpool, he answered with a sneer, before going back to his duties. The woman and her team were heading towards the Hokage Tower, when a very familiar stand came into her line of sight. And for a brief moment a very happy and warm memory of her past raced across her mind, before a ghost of a smile spread across her face. Let's see how they have been, she thought, a little happy and curious about how her old friend and daughter were holding up. We are a bit early, so why don't we get something to eat? I'll show you a little spot I used to go to all the time, she asked, with her team only nodding in agreement. Ichiraku's team, Ice Fox, was currently enjoying their food, after having a short but nice chat with Tsuki and Ayami, who unfortunately couldn't talk for long with all the orders coming in from tourists and shinobi alike. Everything was going fine, until a shout from Tsuki caused the whole stand to grow silent at the usually subdued owner. I said, get the hell out of my restaurant. You were no longer welcome here once you left him. The shout echoed through the stand. Naruto and his team were now quite interested in what the problem was, and chanced to look at the people who Tsuki was verbally raping so adamantly at. The moment Naruto turned just enough so the small group could be seen from between the crowd, he nearly lost control of his chakra and ki. Rage was all that filled Naruto's every thought at that moment, but it was a controlled rage. Had he not mentally prepared for this beforehand, he knew he'd have already went ballistic and attacked by now. He mentally screamed, as the pressure from his balled fist broke his chopsticks. Tsuki-san, you can't still be angry at me. The now unhooded woman yelled back, but in much lower frequency. I will always be angry and disgusted at what you did to your own son. Kushina. Now get the hell out before I make you. He raged once again, before a split second later the point of a kunai was resting against his jugular, causing everyone watching to hitch their breath. I suggest you refrain from threatening my sensei, especially when she was just trying to be nice by visiting. The largest of the hooded teens said coldly, pressing the kunai deeper into Tsuki's end but not breaking the skin. And I suggest you release that kunai from someone that is important to me, lest your team lose one of its members before the Chunin exams even begin. And I highly doubt there is anything nice about Uzumaki Kushina, an even colder voice called out from within the audience. The next moments seemed to go in slow motion for the cloaked team, as the crowd separated, to reveal the person who spoke. As the crowd moved away, all the eyes of the cloaked people grew wide at recognizing the speaker. The crowd revealed an irate-looking Naruto with Southern K's DRD across his shoulders, while sitting nonchalantly on his stool looking at his family, with nothing but contempt and utter loathing in his gaze. When he saw their expressions at his identity, he couldn't help but sadistically smirk. It's been a while, hasn't it? Car-san, he said, with mother, in a tone that expressed the utmost disgust. Naruto. Kushina responded just as coldly when she and her firstborn's eyes locked, seeming to be in an intimate battle. In that moment, everything else disappeared beyond the mother and son, the gazes hardened, seeming to look into each other's souls. Naruto's azure eyes reflect the rage, anguish, pain, and betrayal of the years he spent in Konoha, all thanks to this woman. As he looked at her, he could see the subtle differences in her. Then he remembered those 10 years prior. She looked tired, her face showing signs of old age that should only be seen in the elderly, yet she was no older than 35. Her eyes still gleamed with life, and yet a certain spark was missing. While her face had only the slightest of wrinkles, she was still as beautiful as Naruto remembered. Even so, he could see she still held that aura of strength she was famous for. Her posture was straight and true, perfection for chosen her profession. Whatever negative happened in those 6 years didn't do much to diminish anything about Uzumaki Kushina. At the same time, Kushina watched her son, her matching azure eyes reflecting her anger, as well as sorrow to see her son like this, and a reigniting of righteousness to release her son's body from the clutches of Kyuubi rose within her. She too saw the differences in her son's appearance, his old eyes once gleaming with childlike innocence now turned into the coldness that reminded her of ice. She might have felt slight guilt about that, but knew her son was no more. The baby fat was now gone from his face and limbs, leaving the perfect form of a shinobi in its place. If not for the demon, she would admit to herself that her firstborn was a handsome young man, reminding her much of her late husband. She also noticed his posture and body language, which looked relaxed to the untrained eye, led her to believe that if any of them made a wrong move, he was ready to strike. Whoever taught him the ways of the shinobi was very good, she mused. The last thing she saw, or more specifically felt, some may call a mother's intuition. But she felt it clear as day, that the boy in front of her was powerful. There was an aura about him that she couldn't explain other than using the word powerful, and it slightly frightened her. She didn't know why she felt it. She wanted to believe that it was Kyuubi's evil chakra causing it. But it felt far too different than the evil chakra did during that fateful night. Just something, some hidden strength seemed to exuded off his presence. So you are the Uzumaki Naruto we have heard so much about, NE. Another feminine voice called out from the smallest of the cloaked teens, making Naruto's gaze switch to her, and knocking Kushina out of her thoughts. He gave her a look. And if I am? He questioned. The person shrugged. Nothing, we just wish to gaze at the past visage of our Onisama, and the current one of the demon. She retorted hatefully, making Naruto arch a brow. I see Kushina's paranoia has been passed down. Naruto retorted, making the cloaked boss tense in anger. However, this is getting off the topic. Your Nissan's weapon is still at my good friend's tea. So if he values his life, he'll remove it. He practically ordered. You'll forgive me if I don't listen to the demon that stole my Nissan. The muscular teen stated, that is until the cold steel of a katana was at his own tea, surprising all the occupants of the stand. The second Naruto stopped the sword there, looking as menacing as the real one, simply awaiting the order to kill the boy. So he knows the Kage Bushin, not bad, for a demon, Kushina thought, her eyes scrunching in hatred. Kushina. The real Naruto called out. Call off your Sochi. I don't wish to spill his blood so early in the morning. Don't underestimate me, demon. The teen shouted, about to attack the clone, when Kushina's hand on his shoulder stopped him. Stop, Valios-kun, not now and not here. She ordered in a voice that almost sounded frightened. Naruto's clone relaxed his own grip and threw Shinku Kaijin at the real Naruto before puffing out of existence. I believe now you and your team should leave, he said as he turned on his stool, and allowed his sword to puff out of existence. Kushina looked at her firstborn with a hardened gaze, before taking one final look at her old friend. She nodded and she and her team strolled out of the stand. Oh, and Team Whirlpool, Naruto called out, causing the team to stop and look back. Quote, I'm not your Onisama anymore. You have your Car-san to thank for that, since I'm sure you know she was the one to banish me from the clan. Not that I want to have anything to do with her or the Uzumaki clan any longer anyway. It's bad enough that I have her blood running through my veins as it is. He concluded coldly with a tone of finality. The team said nothing and just left the stand, with a pregnant silence inside the stand before a new customer broke it with his order. A few minutes later the stand was as it was before the confrontation occurred. Was that the best way to introduce yourself, Naru-kun? Natsumi asked, though personally liking it herself. The meeting was going to be volatile no matter what. Besides, they were threatening Tuki, so my hands were tied, he answered with a shrug while finishing off his current bowl of ramen. Anno. Naruto-sama, what was that exactly? Haku asked, slightly confused at the entire situation. Naruto sighed. What did I tell you about calling me that, Haku-chan? Naruto said, emphasizing the chan to tease and embarrass her. Ah, gee, gomen. She replied with a blush of embarrassment on her cheeks. It's fine. As for them, well, I'm sure you gathered they're technically my blood relatives. But I don't recognize them as such, ever since that women abandoned me in this hellhole of a village when I was only 2. He explained, Haku's expression turning to shock and slight anger at the revelation. Gyomenasai Naruto-san, she bowed, not really knowing what else to say. He waved his chopsticks dismissively, at the soft-spoken girl. Forget it, not your fault. And don't worry, they will see what fools they have been for abandoning me by the end of this exam. He stated before going back to his food, his team following suit. With Kushina, Ka-san, Kasumi asked, Hi, what do you think of him? Kushina stayed quiet for a moment. I think he is strong, if you fight him be careful, that goes for all of you, she answered. Oni-sama, we will free you from Kyuubi's grasp, I swear. Kasumi thought. I'll get that demon back for humiliating me, Valios thought, balling his fists. He is strong, Kyoshiro thought, while looking at the clouds. He is much stronger than he looks, I wasn't even able to sense him summon the Kyuubi Bushin. The demon is still this strong when in a human host. I'll have to talk with the Hokage about this, but still, what was that indescribably powerful aura surrounding him? Kushina mused, as she and her team reached the Hokage Tower, to have a chat with Sarutobi. With Team Ice Fox, we should get going, it will be starting soon, Naruto said, finishing off his final bowl. His female companions nodded in agreement before saying the goodbyes to Tuki and Ayami. They heading towards the designated Chunin building, the walk there being surprisingly quiet, that is until yelling could be heard. Hey, let me go, I already apologized to you. A young boy's voice screamed. Recognizing the voice as the Hokage's grandson, Naruto headed towards the voice with Natsumi and Haku in tow. The scene they came upon would have made the two demons snicker in amusement if not for the fact it was Konohamaru being threatened. The grandson of the Hokage was currently being lifted up by the scruff of his shirt by an older-looking boy, dressed in all black with an odd cat ear hat, with what looked like a bandaged mummy on his back and something similar to war paint or makeup on his face in an intricate design. Next to him was a blonde girl, who was only a little shorter than him, with her hair in a unique style, 4 ponytails. She wore a light pink battle kimono that showed off part of her legs, and a battle fan strapped to her back. Both of them were wearing headbands that belonged to the Land of Wind. Think I'll play a little prank, Naruto thought mischievously, as he lifted the mask he had pretty much given up wearing since Konoha knew he was back, up over the bottom half of his face. Let the boy go, we can't be detained for such a stupid reason, the girl yelled. Ma, I'll just teach this brat a quick lesson in manners then we can go, the boy negotiated with his smirk widening, lifting Konohamaru higher into the air making him choke. The boy released his one hand and reeled it back for a punch, and when he was about to propel it forward he couldn't. He looked back, and to his surprise saw another blonde standing behind him holding his fist in place. Oi, who the hell are you? Please put the boy down, Naruto requested. The boy looked at Naruto for a moment before his smirk turned into a scowl, and he released the boy. He then quickly moved to unfurl the mummy on his back, when he left a kunai against his tea and immediately stopped his movements. There is no reason to fight, so just leave for the exams, Naruto suggested, his kunai now hovering above the boy's jugular. Now, where is the third one? Naruto thought before feeling the ground underneath him shift if only slightly, making him smirk in approval. Ah, there is my brother. He concluded with a mentally laugh. The next moment a pillar of what looked like sand shot up from the ground and wrapped itself around Naruto's hand that held the kunai. although he was at fault. I cannot allow you to harm my brother. Yet another new voice called out, from a nearby tree. And how are you going to stop me if I want to? Naruto taunted the newcomer, enjoying his prank very much. The new boy stepped out of the shade of the trees to reveal himself. He wore a black ninja suit with a white sash across his chest, and an oddly large gourd strapped to his back. He had blood-red hair much like Natsume's with cyan eyes, and black markings surrounding them. I will crush your ability to. Sabaku Sausu, Desert Funeral. He said coldly, as the sand around Naruto's hand constricted and with a meaty crunch his entire hand was crushed under the pressure, splashing small amounts of blood on the ground, before the sand receded off the broken limb. To all their shock, the boy wasn't doing anything but looking at the bloody stump that used to be his hand. That is until he sighed in annoyance and a blue glow began to emanate over the wound, and in a minute was a fully functioning hand again. Didn't I already tell you to not do that again? It still hurts like hell, brother, Naruto said before he turned to the sand trio, and pulled his mask down to reveal himself. Arashi. The girl and cat hat boy yelled, making him laugh. Hi. It's been a while. Kankuro, Temari, and Gaara, he said in a jovial tone. The Sand siblings were shocked at this turn of events, although Naruto kept his word with writing them letters to keep in touch. It had been a little more than 6 years since they last saw him. They each went to him and greeted each other properly now as friends. So what? Sooner isn't good enough for you to become a shinobi of? Temari asked with a smirk, noting Naruto's Konoha headband. He scoffed. Hardly, but there are important things we need to discuss, like certain invasion business. But that'll have to wait till after the first part of the exams. He said, making all but Gaara stiffen in apprehensiveness. How do you know about that, Arashi? Kankuro asked. I have eyes and ears everywhere. He answered before laughing, making the three sweat drop. How I know doesn't matter. It's that I do, and we'll need to talk about this. But first I'd like you to meet some other friends of mine. He paused, signaling Natsumi and Haku to come out of the alleyway they had been watching from. This is Natsumi and Haku, and these are Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro. He finished, with each other then giving their own greeting to one another. Arashi, why does Natsumi smell just like you? Like fox? Gaara asked. Ever since talking to Naruto and taking his advice, he began training with Shukaku while getting demonic senses when using the demonic chakra. Arashi. Haku thought, confused on why Naruto was being addressed wrong, but decided to question him later about it. That can be explained later as well, since it seems that the exams will be starting. We should probably get going. Oh, and tell Baki-san about this too. I wish to speak with him as well when the opportunity allows us to be alone. He requested, getting nods from the Sand siblings. Team Ice Fox and Team Sand quickly headed towards the Chunin Tower to get prepared for the hell that is soon to come. Chunin Exam Building. What do you mean you won't let us pass? This is room 301, so we have to get in for the exam. A teenage boy wearing a Konoha headband screamed at a pair of men that seemed to be guarding a door. Like I said, if you can't even get past us to get into this room, then you have no right to even participate in the exams. One guard yelled back, addressing the small audience of Chunin hopefuls that were standing around, as the other was guarding the next flight of stairs. This was the scene that Naruto and his friends came across when they reached the second floor of the building. As the two teams drew closer to the crowd, both Naruto and Natsumi recognized a small portion of the gathered mass. More specifically those of the academy graduates for this year, who were all ironically were heirs to their respective clans. Oi! Drop the genjutsu and let us pass, Sasuke ordered with his famous scowl. What do you mean, brat? You have to get past us to go into the examination room. That would be true, if this was the right room for it. But we only took 2 flights of stairs, so this can't logically be room 301. I will only say it one more time, let us pass. He ordered with a smug smirk at seeing most of the other genin look at him in awe. That was a nice catch, Sasuke, a voice called out, carrying over the crowd, making everyone look at Naruto. I wasn't the rookie of the year for nothing. Not that you'd know, since you didn't even go the academy. Sasuke snapped back, making a few of the other genin snicker. That may be true, but I did learn that when you're in a contest, try to have as little compassion as possible. If I were in your shoes, I'd have just went to the right room without giving away the purpose of this nuisance, to weed out the weaker participants. He explained, a smirk growing across his face from hearing the snickers of the crowd as well as seeing the embarrassed blush of a show-ed up Uchiha. TSH, you'd only do that because you'd be afraid that someone here could beat you, like me. He yelled back, trying to restore some of his pride at being made a fool of. Naruto leveled a glare at the boy. My concern is not winning or losing this exam, my goals are not so provincial, he answered cryptically before his team and Team Sand followed him up the stairs to the true examination room. That kid is interesting, even for a demon, the bullying guards thought, before shunning to the exam room as well. The gang of genin soon climbed the stairs and reached the destination, but while the rest of the teams continued through the door, Team 7 and Team Ice Fox was stopped by Kakashi. Yo! Kakashi greeted in his usual fashion. Quote, I'm glad to see that all of you decided to participate. It would have been a shame if I had to send you all back because one of you lost faith in your abilities. What do you mean, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked, confused at his words. It's simple, you were placed on a team of 3 to work as a unit. It's the same concept in these exams. If any of us decided to not go, none of us could, one for all, and all for one, as it were. Natsumi explained. Very good, Natsumi. Kakashi praised. She is correct. If any of you said no, none of you could continue on. But since that is not the case, no need to worry. I just wished you give a finally good luck before the exams start, well yarne. He finished with a small wave, and hidden smile before shunning out of the hallway. The two teams took the man's words in stride and soon entered the waiting room. So these are all of the people I'm going to have to beat, eh? Sasuke said offhandedly, walking towards the other graduates of his same year with his team following close behind. Meanwhile, Team Ice Fox was walking through the crowd to reach a solitary corner to rest in until the exams began, while casually checking out the other participants. Naruto was shifting his eyes this way and that, not taking any particular interest in anyone he saw, until something in his mind seemed to call out to him, almost beckoning him to look in a certain direction. When he did, his gaze was met by a young woman's. Said woman looked older than what one would think should represent the usual genin shinobi. He'd guess she was in her mid to late 20s. She had blonde hair, much like how his former self used to, that was tied in a long ponytail reaching down to her lower back, with her headband with the Lightning Village insignia on it keeping her hair from falling over her eyes. She wore a short-sleeved black shirt with what looked like a form-fitting lavender-colored body armor on top covering her torso, standard black shinobi pants, a red bandana crossing her hips, and standard shinobi sandals. She had both her arms and legs wrapped in medical tape and wore fingerless gloves. She exuded a strength that seemed to surround all serious kaneki of any nation, yet she still held onto a semblance of femininity, apparent by her still rather generous curves though still lithe body. Although Naruto would say this woman was quite attractive, that wasn't the reason she captured his attention as much as she had. The real reason being that he couldn't shake some feeling of familiarity with her. And for some reason it had a lot to do with her eyes, which were a light shade of emerald. They also held an odd feline look, with an unnatural feeling to them, though he'd also admit they made her look exotic, which only seemed to accentuate her natural beauty. Even as he continued to walk on what seemed like autopilot, their eyes never breaking contact, it was like they both had the same thoughts about the other and just couldn't look away, and some part of them also didn't want to. Unfortunately, a very sarcastic and agitated sounding voice called out, "Buki Heim," to which the girl physically responded by hesitantly looking awake from Naruto towards the direction of the voice. Once she turned, Naruto's almost trance-like stare ended and shook his head from his thoughts, making Natsumi look at him oddly, not noticing his prior actions. Everything okay, Naru-kun? Hi. There was just someone who I felt like I knew, and yet never met them before. She had weird eyes, almost like a cat, and she smelled like one too, he explained. A cat? Ye and her teammates call her Buki Heim, which was the weirdest thing, and I think she felt the same towards me, the same call. She was staring at me also. I see, Natsumi said while pondering his words. It could be either Azanami-chan, but I'll have to see for myself, she thought. Naru-kun, could you point her out the next time you see her? Anno, I guess I could. Why, you getting jealous or something that another woman is looking at me? he teased with a smug smirk. She rolled her eyes. You wish, and besides I think Hana-san and I are more than enough for you, especially if we were two. I don't know, double team you one night. She teased, smirking victoriously at seeing Naruto heavily blush and have a eating grin on his face, obviously pondering that very prospect. As much as that thought intrigues me greatly, we should concentrate on the exams, and apparently save Haku-chan, he said, after noticing three shinobi from Mist trying to flirt with her since she got separated from him a few minutes ago. The demoness nodded after snickering in amusement from her friend's pain, and headed to her. Sorry guys, but we need to talk strategy with our teammate, Natsumi said, pulling Haku away. The men tried to follow, but Naruto stood in between the two groups. Leave, he ordered, his voice completely cold. The three shinobi unconsciously stepped back before they just turned and left. A genin presenting himself like that wasn't one to mess with, especially in his home village. There was no advantage in continuing even for a fine piece of ass like Haku was, in their opinion. Arigato, Haku said, letting out an annoyed breath. Not a problem, Natsumi answered back with a sympathetic smile. She knew all too well the determination that a male's second head can cause. Either of you notice anything interesting? Naruto asked, getting head shakes from his teammates. Oh well, we'll wing it, not like they stand much of a chance anyway. He finished whispering the last part so only they could hear it. They all sat in the corner waiting for the proctor to finally arrive. Unfortunately, they were disappointed after a good 10 minutes of waiting. Luckily, or unluckily depending on how you looked at it, while waiting their attention was tugged on by a nearby conversation, and the voices within it. What do you mean nin info cards, Kabuto-san? The voice of Sakura could be easily recognized. Team Ice Fox got up and made their ways towards the location of her voice to see what the matter was. What I mean is that these cards have info about many of the participating genin in this exam, and since you are fellow Leaf Nin, I could divulge some of that information to you. That is if you have someone in mind you want to know about. A silver-haired boy with glasses clearly older than his Orzens explained with a reassuring smile. How could you have a list of people from other hidden villages already when the exams just started? Sai asked, intrigued at this boy's information gathering SKS, if what he boasted was true of course. That's simple, this is my 7th time taking the exams. I'm a bit embarrassed about that fact, but I hope to reach Chunin this time, plus I got all this information on other shinobi so it wasn't a complete failure. He chuckled embarrassed for a second before schooling his expression. So, was there anyone you wished to see? His words were laced with a candy that none of the Konoha genin could resist. Yeah, the designated team, Ice Fox, Uzumaki Naruto, Natsumi, and Haku, Sasuke said, surprising everyone around. They didn't think he'd be interested in knowing anyone since he'd destroy them anyway. You know the names, should be easy, he answered back with a pleased smile. Kabuto grabbed 3 cards, sent chakra into them before ink began to appear on them, revealing the vitals of the 3 shinobi. Not much on them I'm afraid. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. He just returned to Konoha after a 6-year self-exile and was apparently training as a shinobi during so. His skills are pretty much unknown because of his absence, but if his father can be any indication, he is adept at ninjutsu. He was tested as a candidate for genin, and passed the test with flying colors. He was in a single B-A rank mission before the exams began with Team 7 with Junin instructor Hitaki Kakashi. Gamen, that's all I really have. Kabuto said apologetically before looking up, and sweat dropping at what he saw. Nearly the entire room was staring at Naruto intently. Very few outside of Fire Country knew that the 4th Hokage had a son. And yet here was his legacy standing not 5 feet from them. Apparently Konoha, despite hating Naruto, didn't want to chance a K-ping attempt from vengeful villagers because of who his father was and kept his lineage within the village at all costs. Naruto noticed the stares, a few of awe and respect, though many being death glares, especially from the Iwa genin in the crowd. As well as from Team Whirlpool, who he noticed was now in the front of the crowd, probably wanting as much information on him as possible. He also felt a heated gaze on him, the same gaze he felt when looking at that Kumo Kunoiki, thought he couldn't tell where she was if it was her. May I help you? He questioned the crowd, before Iwa genin strode up to him and glared. Are you really the Yondaime Hokage's Sochi? He asked with venom dropping from every word. And if I am? The boy's eyes narrowed dangerously. Then I just want to tell you to watch yourself, because since you're good for nothing Tucson is we'll have to take Iwa's revenge out on you. If you must, though I don't recommend it, as this guy said I'm an unknown, and that is a very dangerous variable when in the shinobi world. Naruto answered nonchalantly. The boy growled through clenched teeth. It won't matter, you'll for the sins of your Tucson no matter what, that's a promise. He spat before turning and disappeared into the crowd. There was a pregnant pause within the room. No one dared to speak after that rather heated talk. That is until Kabuto coughed, cutting the tension and having everyone go back to their own doings. As I was doing before that all happened. Natsumi, no known last name. Is completely unknown with no prior shinobi record in any village. Appeared to be Naruto's companion while he was gone and returned with him. Her skills are too unknown and was partnered with Naruto and Team 7 to that false B rank mission, after she passed the test, as well. Quote. He said before turning to the last card. And finally is Haku, no known last name either, she hails from water country though not as a shinobi, and is adept at Suiten and surprisingly enough Hyoten as well. And she apparently has a Kekkei Genkai of some kind. Well seems like Team Ice Fox has the element of surprise on their side, a powerful weapon if used correctly, he mused. Most of those people who were still listening to him were slightly unnerved at such a wild card team. Especially with the Namika's legacy, and someone who has probably trained with him in Natsumi too. Most of the teams made mental notes to leave that team alone no matter what, whereas others just wanted to fight them even more, or more specifically Naruto. Kabuto was about to put his cards away since no one else seemed interested, until he felt a hand on his shoulder. Team Whirlpool. Uzumaki Valios and his two siblings, Naruto said taking his hand off. Uzumaki. Wait Naruto, isn't that your clan? Sakura asked, confused at what was going on. His eyes immediately darkened. No. Don't think that just because we have the same name we are family, runs deeper than a simple name, much deeper. He answered coldly, making everyone around him but his teammates and Kabuto take a step back, and Team Whirlpool clench their fists. Kabuto, he called, silently ordering him to continue. Right, let's see. He stuttered, while rummaging throughout his cards before finding the correct three. Okay, Team Whirlpool, Uzumaki Kasumi, Uzumaki Valios, and Uzumaki Kyoshiro whose Junin instructor is Uzumaki Kushina the current head of the Uzumaki clan. Well at least I have some info on this team, and taught by the ex-wife of the Yondaime Hokage. Impressive. He stated more to himself than his audience. Quote. Uzumaki Kasumi, the current heir to the infamous Uzumaki clan who reside in Whirlpool country. She is the oldest of the three siblings, and her mission list is quite impressive. 50D rank, 15C rank, 8B rank, WoW, and 3A rank too. She seems to be well versed in all aspects of the shinobi arts but appears to excel and prefer ninjutsu. She is said to be a ninjutsu prodigy amongst the clan, having created a variety of her own jutsu at an early age. Kabuto said, getting slight gasps from the still gathered crowd, and a smug smirk from Kasumi that could even dwarf Sasuke's. Uzumaki Valios, he is the next born after Kasumi, and his mission report is the same as his sister's. He as well is well balanced in the shinobi arts, but enjoys using taijutsu more than anything. He was deemed the best taijutsu user in his generation in Whirlpool after creating his own impressive fighting style that is made even more powerful when enhanced with his chakra. Many rumors from Whirlpool say he can decimate an entire mountain with this, but rumors are all that they are. He said, getting another set of gasps, and the complete attention of a green spandex-wearing youth, that was attached to another team from Konoha who appeared to be 1 year older than the nicknamed Konoha 9 graduates of this past year. And finally, Uzumaki Kyoshiro, the youngest of the siblings, but apparently no less dangerous. His mission report is about the same, but that H has also participated in the interrogations of captured enemy shinobi on occasion. He is well-rounded in all aspects of the shinobi arts same as his siblings, but he has a knack for genjutsu. Apparently so much so that he was nicknamed Genjutsu no Mahoutsukai, Wizard of Genjutsu, by his shinobi peers, and uses his skills during his interrogations. And apparently he has never met anyone who he wasn't able to break. He finished before sighing, and put his cards away. Seems there are a few teams to look out for this year: Ice Fox with their unknown skills, Whirlpool with their impressive stats combined with their Kekkei Genkai and apparent skill balance, as well as Sand taught by the Kazekige's military general. Hi, this year should prove to be the most interesting. He mused mostly to himself, but everyone else that heard him were thinking the same thing, as well as having their own thoughts too. Hi, quite interesting indeed. I just wonder what your master Orochimaru is planning at this moment, Kabuto, Naruto thought. Already knowing Kabuto to be a spy, he smelled like snake, but rooting him out so soon would be a bad choice. He could gather some information later if he let the boy go. So, I'll have some strong compassion this year, huh? Good. I'd hate to face weak opponents that couldn't give me a challenge. Sasuke thought while turning his back from everyone. Damn. Now he has an idea on what we are capable of, and all we got is his name. Kasumi cursed her luck at her half-brother's ingenuity. Oh well, not like it will matter. We will crush the demon and finally allow my Oni-sama's soul to be free. She finished, with Valios thinking along the same lines before the three went into the crowd. Arashi, why did you lie to us? Both Kankuro and Temari wondered in sadness that their friend had lied to them. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, why are you so familiar to me? The emerald-eyed Kumo Kuniaki mentally questioned, before being called by her team. The room soon began to rumble with whispers about the exams and the identified teams thanks to Kabuto. That is until a loud voice boomed over all the noise, silencing the genin. They turned towards the voice's origin to find a scarred man in a long black trench coat and garbed in Chunin attire standing in front of a line of Chunin who dressed just like the guards who were protecting the door on the second floor. Seems there are a lot of you this year. I'll just have to cut those numbers down now, won't I? The man's gruff voice rumbled throughout the room, making a few of the genin look like they just voided their bowels. I'm Morino Ibiki, your proctor for the first part of the Chunin exams. Now, I suggest you all go down the hall and reach the designated room, or else you'll fail the exam. He suggested before smirking sadistically, causing a few more genin to lose the color in their faces. Oh, and you have 30 seconds. He stipulated before he and his gang puffed out of existence. For a moment a pin could be heard dropping, before the roars of the many teams echoed throughout the entire building as they rushed to the room, fearing to fail the exam. As the final team exited, Team Ice Fox was the only one left. Idiots, Natsumi said under her breath. Haku smiled sympathetically. They are only genin, it's only natural that the deductive skills aren't the best. Yay, well, I think we gave them enough time to get there, so let's go. Naruto suggested before he and his team walked to the exam room. The examination room was packed with mostly panting genin as they took seats wherever they could find them inside the large classroom. It seems only a few of them get the meaning of being a shinobi. Ibiki thought while noting all of the normal breathing genin, those being Sand, Whirlpool, Kumo, and some specific individuals. Oh well, by the end of this examination they will be forced to take a long and hard look at themselves to see if they are really cut out to be shinobi, and Chunin at that. He concluded his little monologue, before nodding to one of his subordinates to close the door so the test could begin. The Chunin nodded in response, and when he was about to close the door, a kunai slid between the door and the archway, stopping its progress before being opened up fully, allowing Team Ice Fox to enter. Ibiki saw this and smiled mirthfully. Seems the last team made it. You're lucky, you had no time left. He said in a threatening tone. It wasn't luck. Naruto started as he and his team headed to the last of the open seats. Just because this is an organized exam doesn't mean there couldn't be enemy shinobi around. For all we know, there could have been a bunch of sword-wielding samurai, or hand-sealing shinobi in this room ready to arrest the lot of us. Stealth is a part of being a shinobi, and rushing into an area you've been assigned a mission to but have no real intel on is foolish at best, even if that mission was given to you by comrades. Time as well is vital to a shinobi, to the success of a mission or the life of you or your team. You do something too soon, and you blow the element of surprise. You do it too slow and you run the risk of your enemy finding you. That is why my teammates and I came exactly when we needed to, with no time left to spare, and no time wasted. He lectured, before plopping himself down in his seat and leaning back in his chair. Now shall we begin? He asked condescendingly. The reactions to Naruto's little explanation was chaotic at best. Most of the genin had the decency to look sheepish out of embarrassment at such a novice mistake, some just smiled at the boy's common sense, while others looked at him in distaste for their own personal reasons. Ibiki, however, was smirking widely at the boy's correct response to the situation, as well as the balls he had to speak to a superior-ranking shinobi in such a fashion. Hell, if I could, I'd promote that little bastard to Chunin right now. I'd do it, demon or no. What he just did is exactly what a Chunin-ranking shinobi is supposed to be, but let's see if he can put his life and skills where his mouth is. The Junin thought. Alright, well, now that everyone is here, we can start the exams. He began as his subordinates handed out exam papers and pencils to write with. Now this will be the written part of the exam to access your strategic and logic skills which are needed to be successful Chunin. Ibiki took a short stint to explain all the rules that applied to the written exam, getting mixed reactions from the genin, mainly being suspicious glances while he was mentioning the rules about cheating. I hope you have listened well, because neither will my helpers nor I repeat any of the rules to you. Prepare yourselves, the exam will begin. He paused and watched as all the genin grabbed their papers and writing utensils. Now, the entire room was quiet as a mouse, save for the small scratches from the pencils against the test papers. Naru-kun. Hi Natsu-chan. I'm bored. This man's mind games are rather elementary. She answered with a playfully bored tone. True, but it seems to be working for most of the genin. I mean, look at them, some of them haven't even found out the real purpose to the test yet. So you have to admit, for who he is using them on, he seems to be pretty good with psychological warfare. I suppose, but still. She let her argument drop when he interrupted her. Oh, by the way, that woman I was talking about before is sitting 3 rows behind you and 4 seats over your left shoulder. Hearing this, Natsumi chanced getting a point away to glance at the woman Naruto seemed to be obsessed with since the other room. Natsumi looked awisingly at the blonde-haired, green-eyed woman, and surprisingly with a quickly glance she did look slightly like a cat. Which only caused Natsumi's suspensions to rise, that is until she took a strong sniff in the air. So it is Iza-chan. That little hell cat didn't even say hi to me. But then again, I suppose she has her reasons, Natsumi mused. So, any idea why she feels familiar? Naruto asked. No. But you are right, she does look a little like a cat, but are you sure you weren't just checking her out? She teased. You'll figure it out soon enough, Naru-kun. This'll be my revenge for this morning, she thought to herself, making sure not to let Naruto hear. I already said no. He grunted. Or no need to get upset, Naru-kun. She has a nice body from what I can tell. And just imagine if she really was a cat, all that flexibility, she probably has even more than me. Just imagine all those positions she could do. She teased more, while smirking at knowing he was probably blushing from her implications. You know, for someone who said she hated to share me, you sure are giving the impression of wanting me to have s with a lot of other females, first Kyuuki-chan and now her. He decided to parry her own teasing with his own, while pushing down the erotic thoughts flashing through his mind thanks to his mate. True, but that's because I like to tease you, especially since I know you'd never do that to Hana-chan or little ol' me, she finished, her tone taking on a sad little baby's, and yet still being sea at the same time. Not to ruin the fun, but, what do you think about Whirlpool now that you know a little about them? She asked. Not much, however Kushina seemed to train them well if their mission stats were any indication. And for each of them to hone one of the 3 parts of the shinobi arts while still being good at the others and then combining them into a team. I can see why she had such a reputation before. It's nearly strategically perfect with very few holes in the design. The main one being if they ever get separated from each other. He mused, awising the teams. True, if there is nothing good you can say about her, you can't say she isn't stupid when it comes to the world of shinobi. But what if you face one of them? I'll destroy them, utterly. And in front of Kushina if possible, just to add salt to the wound of their pride, ignorance, and betrayal. He answered, his cold tone making a slight appearance before leaving. By the way, do you think I should keep a KGB bush and following Kabuto? No. It would be best to lay low and off the radar of Orochimaru right now. Let the proctor know about him and then let the Hokage deal with him. We have more important things to deal with than a spy. She responded before asking another question. And what if I face one of them? I will never tell you how you fight your battles, Natsu-chan, you know that. Though I'd prefer you not K them, but hey, accidents happen, he said with a dark chuckle, making Natsumi want to jump down to him and give him a heated kiss. Naruto's dark side was a rarity to see, and it caused Natsumi to always get hot under the collar to see her mate be so demonic. You always know just what to say, Foxy-sama, she cooed seductively, purposely using her personal, intimate, pet name for him, to express her happiness at what he told her. It just means I know you, my Benny Kisai, he responded huskily. That you do, 6 times last night if I recall. She answered thoughtfully in a satisfied tone, making him chuckle at her memory. Seems the exam time is up, he lamented not being able to talk with his mate more. Unfortunately. Alright, pencils down and turn your papers over for the 10th question. Abiki's voice rang out throughout TTHE room, which had lightened in its capacity since the beginning. About half of the teams had been disqualified. Now before I give you the final question, there is one last rule I wish to tell you that pertains to this particular question. He continued on, and that rule is applied because of the 10th question's weight upon your passing of this part of the exam. The rule is simple, stay here and take the 10th question, or leave now, your choice. What do you mean the final question if an optional one? Temari questioned, slightly confused and suspicious of these circumstances. It's as it sounds, he is giving us the option of either taking the final question, or quitting the exam. However, I believe there are stipulations to our choice he hasn't told us yet, Haku explained. Being with Zabuza for so long gave you the useful ability read people like Abiki like a book, so it wasn't hard to figure out what this part of the exam's real intentions are. Seems Team Ice Fox is a bunch of know-it-alls. The scarred man joked. But hi, you are correct, there are stipulations with each choice you make. And that is exactly it. The choice is completely up to you. However, you will hear the stipulations before you decide. He paused before that infamous sadistic smirk raced on his lips again. If you choose to stay and take the 10th question, that's all well and good. However, if you answer and get the question wrong, you will never be allowed to participate in the Chunin exams again. You'll be a genin, doing D-rank missions for the rest of your life. What? That isn't fair. Temari shouted. Abiki growled. Tough. My exam, my rules. Not all choices you make in this life will be easy, especially when it comes down to leading a team of your comrades, which is what you will do if you become Chunin. What is the other stipulation for the other choice? Kyoshiro asked, shocking most of the genins since the boy hadn't uttered a sound the entire time since the exams began. Ah, so he speaks. Abiki joked, getting a scowl from Kasumi and Valios. The other stipulation is that you forfeit your exam papers and leave, the rest of your team must as well. But you'll at least be allowed to take the exams the next time they roll around. Damned if you do, damn if you don't. Natsumi said out loud, but not to anyone in particular. Now, I will allow you 1 minute to decide on what each of you will do. Simply raise your hand and name your team, then leave if you wish to quit. Your minute starts now, Abiki said, noticing a few hands already raised. What weak-willed fools. They don't deserve to be shinobi if they are shaken up so easily, Valios thought, wanting to spit in the face of every genin that fell to Abiki's mind games. The minute fully passed and another 5 teams left the room, failing themselves. Abiki smirked at the outcome. Good. Seems we have some genin with some backbone. Quote. He congratulated though more to himself than anyone while noting the remaining teams were the ones he figured would stay, Ice Fox, Sand, Kumo, Seven, Whirlpool, and a few others that didn't really catch his eye. Now for the final question. He paused once more, hoping to get some kind of nervous response from the occupants, but was disappointed. There isn't one. Congratulations, you all passed the first part of the Chunin exams. He finished with a genuine smile. Troublesome. A boy called out, who appeared to be sleeping the entire exam time, making most of the genin in the room nod their heads in agreement. I don't get it, Sakura stated rather apprehensively, not wanting to be yelled at for asking. The 10th question was actually the choice you all just made to take it. Quote. Abiki answered, only serving to confuse the poor girl. Look, Chunin have to deal with life or death decisions every mission they take. Some of those choice could get a teammate killed or worse. The point of the choice was to see if you had the fortitude to deal with that kind of situation, having the weight of your team resting solely on your shoulders, and picking the best choice in a bad situation. He elaborated, seeing a few faces light up in understanding. Right when another one of the genin was about to ask a question, something busted through the window of the room, which immediately put all the genin in edge. Fortunately for them, all it was a large sign that clung to the wall via kunai that stated, "The Cian single, Mitarashi Anko, your second exam proctor." The genin settled down, after reading it realizing it wasn't a sneak attack, before a feminine voice called out echoing through the room. So here are the brats for this year's Chunin exams NE. Don't look like much, bunch of greenhorns to me. Anko stated after revealing herself from behind her sign, making a few of the male genin leer at her attire which did nothing to hide her generous figure. Damn Abiki, you let this many brats pass. You must be losing your edge. She teased, making the taller man grunt in annoyance. Oh well, just means I'll have to skim their ranks a bit during my part of the exam. She smiled, a quick seductive but evil smile that promised both pleasure and pain, though for who was questionable. Alright brats, now that you have passed the first part of the exam I suppose I should congratulate you. But I won't, because this part was easy compared to what you'll be subjected to tomorrow. I expect you all to be at training ground 44 at 9 a.m. If you are even a second late, don't even show up. She ordered with a candy sweet smile before puffing out of the room. Alright, you heard your proctor, you have the rest of the day to prepare yourselves for the second part of the exam, and I suggest you use it. Abiki said after sighing from Anko's little speech. The genin soon got up from their seats and slowly filed out of the room. When the last one was gone, the door closed, and Abiki's subordinates began collecting the pseudo exams, that is until one of them called Abiki over to him in a panicked voice. What is it? Abiki asked, annoyed at the interruption. The man simply gave his superior the exam that had a message written on it addressed to Abiki himself. Abiki, the Konoha shinobi called Kabuto isn't who he appears to be, he is one of Orochimaru's spies. Do not ask me how I know this, but trust me, tell Hokage-sama about it immediately. And if he asks who this is, just tell him, 5 tails, he'll understand. Abiki growled at the message, although he already knew of Orochimaru's plan thanks to the emergency meeting all the Junin attended at the behest of the Hokage a week ago. However, it was still an annoying pill to swallow that a spy could get by his senses. He was the best interrogation specialist in Konoha after all. He looked back at the Chunin with a hard gaze. Do you know who was seated here? Gomen, Abiki-san, but once the exams started our attention were focused on the genins, cheating, abilities, not who they were or where they were located. The man confessed with a bow of apology. Very well, men, this does not leave this room, and I understood. He ordered, getting the attention of everyone. Hi, they chorused out. Whoever it was, is very good if even I didn't have an inkling to one of them being a spy. Damn, Hokage-sama will not be happy about this, he thought, before leaving the room to report to his commander. Konoha streets. The teams that passed quickly, dispersed for their own personal reasons to prepare for the second part of the exam. However, Naruto had something even more important than that to speak with Team Sand about. Oi guys, wait up, he shouted to Team Sand as they were heading to their hotel room to tell Baki about their success. What is it, Naruto? Gaara questioned with a hard edge to his voice. You're heading back to your rooms, right? The siblings looked at one another, before they nodded. Hi. Good, we can finally have that talk then, the blonde boy said with a smile. Why should we trust you? Temari questioned, clearly angry and sad. Naruto frowned at her, questioned. Gomen, about lying to you guys. If we can have that talk, I can tell you everything. He offered in a pleading voice. Team Sand looked at Naruto for a few moments, pondering whether or not to believe the boy who stood in front of him. But their curiosity getting the better of them, they nodded in consent to his request. The two teams headed to the hotel the Sand siblings were staying at, and reached it in little time. They reached their specific rooms and knocked on Baki's door. Since he had the biggest room, they figured tea would be best to talk there. Baki-sensei, it's us, Kankuro called out, before the door to the room opened slowly to reveal Baki. Ah, so I'll guess that you guys pass. He started before he noticed another team behind his own. Who are they? He questioned on guard. Or you don't remember me, Baki-sensei? Naruto questioned with a fake pout. Arashi. Baki questioned with his visible eye wide open, surprised that the blonde boy in front of him was the same boy he taught nearly 7 years ago. Hi, it's me. Okay, what's going on? Baki questioned, hating being out of the loop. He needs to talk with a sensei about our mission, Gaara answered, emphasizing his final words, to make Baki understand. Baki's body went rigid, when he quickly grabbed a kunai and slammed Naruto up against the wall with a kunai against his teeth. Gomen Naruto, but no one must know. Baki said with slight sadness in his voice, before feeling two pointed objects, one against his liver, and the other at his left lung. It's alright, Baki. I already have plans for sooner, however I do wish to speak with you for so I'd like to live, Naruto answered with a small smile. Baki weighed his options heavily, and soon conceded to the teenage boy's whims and let him go. Very well, Arashi, he said before going inside his room, with the two teams following closely behind. Naruto closed the door since he was the last one, locked it and then used his Otofugen Shoheki no Jutsu to seal the room off from any prying eyes. While Natsumi used the same Onoppo Genjutsu when Naruto fought Kakashi. The Sand team and Haku looked at the demon pair oddly, before realizing what they had done. The demon pair finally took their open seats, and stared at the Sand shinobi, with Naruto showing a sign of guilt. Before we start, I just want to apologize to all of you for lying about who I really was, and why I was in Suna 4. But other than my name and the story about my parents, everything else was true. Gomenasai. Baki rose a brow in confusion, before his team explained what Naruto meant. At first Baki was angry at being duped like he was, but certainly couldn't blame Naruto for the reasons behind his lie. Although we hate being lied to, it is part of being a shinobi, Naruto. I think we can forgive you, this once. However, who are you really? Baki asked with a smirk and Team Sand nodding in affirmation, making Naruto smile. Arigato. Ano, my real name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the son of Konoha's Yondaime Hokage. Well, it's certainly no wonder why you lied. If you told us the truth, we'd have sent you back to Konoha, Baki answered with a short laugh. Hi, I figured as much, plus my two-san had a lot of enemies, a few of which I met at the exams. So I needed an alias during my travels throughout the elemental nations. Baki nodded in understanding. Alright, now on to the real business at hand. Naruto, how exactly do you know what is happening? I have a spy in Oto, and I learned from him. However, at the time of his report he didn't know when during the exams the invasion is supposed to happen. You have a spy in Oto. How the hell could you get one so deep inside when all you did was travel around? Baki questioned, surprised. Well, since we are laying everything out on the table, Natsu-chan, he said looking at his mate, who merely nodded. The two put up their hands and whispered, Kai, before a plume of smoke surrounded the two. The smoke cleared quickly to reveal the demon pair in their adult forms, though still lacking the demon appendages. It's feel nice to not have to limit our chakra and ki, Naruto said happily while cracking a few of his joints. The Sand shinobi along with Haku looked on in awe at who they were looking at. The two females with slight blushes towards Naruto, where Kankuro was drooling at Natsumi. Baki, being a seasoned shinobi, was able to recover quickly, and just looked sternly at the person who looked slightly like Naruto. Explain, he ordered. That's a bit hard to explain. Naruto admitted. He knew this conversation was going to be well detailed, but that didn't make it any easier. By now I'm sure Gaara has told at least you guys that I am a Jinchuriki just as he is. He said, getting nods from the Sand shinobi. Jinchuriki? Haku questioned hesitantly, completely out of the loop at this point. Gomen, Haku-chan, we never told you, did we? Gomen? Well, long story short, Jinchuriki are humans who have had a biju sealed inside them. Gaara and I are two of those people. There are 9 in all, 1 for each biju, though we don't know if all of them have been sealed. I hope you don't think any less of us, he explained, hoping the young woman would understand. Haku just looked at Naruto and then at Gaara and then back at Naruto. Truthfully, she didn't know what to think about this. She wouldn't have ever suspected that Naruto was carrying a demon, though that might explain a few things about him, like his personality and nearly inhuman skills. She quickly flashed through her memories of the blonde, well now orange-haired man named Naruto, and after thinking about it, realized that he showed no tendencies towards being the demon that resided in him. I've lived with a man who called himself a demon for many years, so now living with the real thing isn't much of a difference, aside from being treated better. She finally answered with an accepting smile, making Naruto smile back. Arigato Haku-chan, but just to note, Jinchuriki aren't demons. We simply live with one inside of us. He explained, making Haku nod in understanding. Well, my case is different, but we'll get to that later. He mused mostly to himself, though everyone heard him and quirked their eyebrows. Well, now that everyone is on the same page, I can continue. During our travels before coming back to Konoha, Natsumi and I went to the land of snow. And while there we befriended a local woman in one of the small villages. Sadly though, she had a disease that caused her death. However, on her deathbed she confessed that she used to be one of Orochimaru's top scientists and that she had a spy still inside Oto. Once she SD, the spy pledged loyalty to us, and that's who we learned about the invasion, as well as finally figuring out a way to get Natsu-chan out of my damned seal. He finished. The room was quiet as a mouse as Naruto's story registered to all that listened. Wait a minute, are you telling me that? Baki nearly yelled while jumping out of his seat in a defensive stance while facing Natsumi. That I am Baki. Natsu-chan, here is my Biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, Naruto said with an amused smirk. The rest of the occupants in the room but Gaara jumped up and moved towards Baki. The Sand siblings could handle the news of Shukaku. But to hear the most powerful Biju and demon in existence was free, that's a while other kettle of fish. What do you mean? She is free. Temari cried out, fear evident in her face. Calm down, you little scaredy cats, you'd think that having Gaara as a Ototo would have made you used to Biju, Naruto grumbled. Well, at least I still got it, Natsumi stated with a toothy grin, puffing out her already large chest proudly. Naruto-san, please explain, Haku asked, slightly trembling. Natsumi rolled her eyes. I'm not here to K anyone, she retorted, before making a thoughtful expression. Well, anyone in this room anyway. So calm down before you give yourselves a heart attack. If I really wanted you already would be. Besides, you four were one of the first few people to be kind to Naru-kun when his life bad. I wouldn't harm you, nor would I harm you either, Haku-chan, she reassured them. The group were hesitant to return to their seats, that is until the vixen growled in disapproval, to which they jumped back into their seats. Please explain, Baki asked, though still scared, now interested. It was a jutsu the friend I was telling you about had developed originally for Orochimaru, but he tossed the idea, and her. Thusly, after learning who I was, taught me the jutsu to allow Natsu-chan's soul to be put into a corpse and then that corpse turning into the soul's body, which basically gave Natsu-chan her real human body back. Of course there are a few stipulations to jutsu, but no need to get into the specifics at the moment, he explained. So, you're telling me that the strongest Biju known to exist found a jutsu loophole, and circumvented your Two-Sans seal and now has a real body once again? Baki asked, utterly amazed. Hi, that's pretty much the gist of it, Naruto explained. Anything else about our situation? Ano, what did you mean by your case being different than Gaara's? Kankuro asked. I nearly forgot about that. Well, pretty much. A human body can only hold so much demonic chakra before it overloads and, for lack of a better visual, implodes. Now, because of how Jinchuriki work, the demon chakra slowly ebbs into the host chakra coils, which then increase the chakra capacity the Jinchuriki has. I'm sure that Gaara has the most chakra in Suna by now, right? He asked, getting nods from the Sand Shinobi. Well, as you know, the Biju's strength and transversely its chakra reserves can be based directly on the amount of tails it has, 1 through 9. Now, because of the aforementioned point that humans can only hold so much demonic chakra, if that point is reached and yet there is still more to absorb, such as in my case with Natsu-chan. The only possibility of survival is if the human becomes a Hanyu, a half-demon. Half-demons can hold unlimited amounts of demonic chakra, so they aren't limited like humans are. He explained. So that means, Temari started before Naruto nodded. Hi. A few years ago I reached my limit, and had to turn into a Hanyu to survive. And because of the transformation my body changed to as physically perfect as my body would have gotten had I stayed human. Thusly it turned into what my 30-year-old self would look like. So at this moment I'm half demon, and half human, he finished her statement for her. Will I turn into a Hanyu as well? Gaara asked while rubbing his stomach after thinking over Naruto's explanation. No. Gaara, you won't. Shukaku didn't have enough chakra before its sealing in you to warrant you becoming Hanyu like myself. No offense, Shukaku-san, Naruto finished, surely knowing that Gaara's Biju had been listening the whole time and not wanting to offend it. Hanyu are usually for 5 tails or higher, he said offhandedly. So is this what you really look like, Naruto-san? Haku asked, slightly intrigued at the entire prospect. No. Well no, but can we see? Baki interrupted. Naruto just looked at Natsumi, who simply rolled her eyes with a chuckle before they repeated the same hand gesture and with a plum of smoke revealed the true forms. Kawaii. Both Haku and Temari shouted before jumping at Naruto to try to caress his flickering tails and ears, making the rest of the occupants sweat drop at the hardened Kunoichi's actions. After successfully getting a tail and petting it happily, both girls realized what they had just done and sat back down with embarrassed blushes that covered their entire faces. Gomenasai, they chorused in unison. It's fine, but I suggest you not do that again, Natsumi said, smirking sadistically. Let's just say Naru-kun here is rather sensitive in his demonic features, she explained, letting everyone's imagination run wild with her insinuation. You know I'm going to get you back for that, right? Naruto growled playfully. I sure hope so, she purred back, while leaning over her chair and nibbled his fox ear lightly, making him shiver. The other in the room looked at them either with a quirked eyebrows or blushes at her actions. Noticing this, Natsumi moved back to her side with a satisfied smirk, while Naruto grumbled under his breath about nympho-vixens, not that he ever complained. Alright, Naruto, now that we had our questions answered, what were yours? Baki inquired. Hi, I just want to know the specifics about the invasion, more to the point when exactly it's going to happen during the exams. How many Oto shinobi will be there? What, if any, plans or strategies Orochimaru cooked up to bringing Konoha down? And where Orochimaru is right now? Well, although I am Kazekage-sama's military general, Orochimaru is leading most of the show, but I'll tell you what I can. He wants us to strike during the finals of the exams. More specifically, whenever Gaara's fight occurs. As far as numbers, I'm not sure. Oto is lacking in manpower, which is probably why he wants us as allies. But if I were to guess, I'd say maybe 100 Oto shinobi, all being Chunin or higher. The only strategies that we've been talking about is using Gaara as the main damage dealer because of Shukaku. With the confusion of his rampage going on, we will be breaking though the outer walls of Konoha. Baki explained. Naruto nodded several times during the Junin's explanation. I see, and while that goes on, I'm sure Orochimaru himself will be dealing with his own vendettas. Naruto mused. Knowing that snake, I wouldn't put it past him. By the way, have you already informed the Hokage about the invasion? I have, that is why you've seen so many Konoha shinobi lounging around. I see, Baki said, sounding worried. Do not worry, Baki. I have already told the Hokage that when the invasion happens, I will have Suna on Konoha's side. Baki quirked a brow. What do you mean, Naruto? You may be friends with us and Kazekage-sama, but you have no clout within the military of Suna. How can you possibly have Kazekage-sama stop Suna's part of the invasion? Baki inquired. Naruto may be a friend, but there are still lines that shouldn't be crossed between friends. It's because of the Kazekage that I think I can. I may have only known the man for a few months, but those months were important in learning who the leader of Suna was. And with Natsu-chan here to back me up, I don't believe that he would have chosen to invade Konoha like this. I think someone is pulling his strings, and that someone is a certain snake. Naruto growled out. The Sand siblings and Baki were shocked at Naruto's explanation. They wouldn't admit it out loud, but they too noticed a drastic difference in the Kazekage over the last few months when the news of the invasion took root in Suna. They all chalked it up to his willingness to get Suna back to its former glory. But when he started renouncing their council's decisions and sided with Orochimaru's plans continually, suspicions soon grew within his closest acquaintances. I see, you certainly have a sharp mind, Naruto. I must agree with you, Kazekage-sama's actions as of the past few months have been the exact opposite of what he would be expected to do. He's traded in a lot of Suna's virtues just to agree and go along with Orochimaru's suggestions. Perhaps you are correct, but still, until there is some kind of proof, we cannot simply disobey him on hunches. Naruto nodded. I can understand that, but we have time, at least since the invasion isn't happen until after the month hiatus for the final part of the exam. I will find your proof before then, Naruto assured, Baki and the siblings nodding in understanding. Once, or if you do, please come to me. I don't want Suna in a war that wasn't even chosen by Suna herself. Baki said lamentingly. Understood. By the way, Baki, why did you tell me all this? I know we are friends, but to divulge all this information so freely, even if I just gave an inkling to knowing about the invasion. I thought I was going to have to beat it out of you for a minute there after that little incident in the hallway, Naruto said, chuckling a bit. Truth be told, I don't know, I mean you said you knew of it already, and for some reason I felt okay with telling you. Maybe I trust you more than I realized after all you did for Gaara and his family in only a few months' time. Baki said genuinely with a small smile. I see, arigato for your trust in me then. Naruto said while getting up from his seat, prompting Natsumi and Haku to do the same. Well, we'll let you go and prepare for the exams tomorrow. However, before we go, he paused, grabbing a special Titan-colored scroll from his pouch and tossed it at Gaara, who caught it effortlessly. Quote, Gaara, I know how to perform the jutsu that gave Natsumi her freedom, and I'm offering that to you and Shukaku as well. Talk with it and think it over, you both can benefit from it. However, because of your importance in the invasion, you will have to wait until after the exams and invasion are over before I can do it for you. Until then, think over it and make a decision, okay? He offered, looking right in the. Gaara was taken aback at Naruto's proposal. He didn't know he could also free himself from his biju just like his brother had, but was more than happy to think it over with his tenant. Arigato, brother, he said with a smile that looked a lot better in Naruto's opinion than the scowl he had during the exams, but then again, reputation was a lot to a shinobi. Not a problem, now if you'll excuse us. He started before he and Natsumi transformed back to their teenage forms, and broke their jutsu surrounding the room. Quote, I'm sure I don't need to say so, but what was said in this room will stay in this room, correct? Not even the Kazekage will hear of this. He asked, getting serious nods in response, making him smile. Team Ice Fox soon left them to muse on the conversation that just took place, while they reached the streets of Konoha. What shall we do now? Haku asked, as the team exited the door to the hotel. I was actually thinking of teaching you a few of the Hyoten jutsu I picked up in snow, Naruto said in a laxitude. Someone taught you Hyoten jutsu? Haku questioned in surprise. Not many people outside of Snow Country thought their jutsu were worth learning other than her clan and a few others, of course, so she was surprised that Naruto had. Hi. It's the reason we went there. I see. Well, arigato for the help, Naruto-san, Haku bowed in appreciation. Mama, stop with the respect crap, Haku-chan. Just because you know I'm older than you doesn't mean our relationship has changed, so please address me accordingly, Naruto scolded the younger girl with a smile. Gomen Naruto-kun. See, that wasn't so hard now, was it? He joked, before creating a cage bushin. Now I'll have him bring you back to the house and teach you a few jutsu ne. He asked, getting a smile from Haku before the pair headed back to the house. What are we gonna do, Naru-kun? Natsumi asked. I don't know about you, but I'm going to grab Hana-chan to see if she wants to go on a date before I have to deal with the exams tomorrow. He said happily, before taking a few steps forward, never seeing the frown from on Natsumi's face. Oh, I see. Have fun then, she said, trying not to sound disappointed, but failing miserably with her head looking at her feet. A few seconds of silence passed, before Natsumi gasped when she was pulled in a nearby alley by two strong arms wrapped around her hips and shoulders. I hope you didn't think I was going to ditch you, my Natsu-chan, Naruto's playful and husky voice called out, his breath dancing against the tender part of her Go. Gomen Naru-kun, we just haven't been romantic for a while, she stuttered out, surprised at his sudden actions and touch. Naruto just smiled before giving her a chaste kiss, and releasing her from his GS. She turned around and just leaned against his chest. He cupped her cheek in his hand and lifted it so she was looking at him with a happy smile. It's okay, Natsu-chan, and I know what you mean, but we both know that the exams take precedence ne. He asked, getting a nod, while he caressed her cheek with his thumb. Good. Now let's go see if Hana-chan is available ne. He rhetorically asked, before kissing her rather passionately as an apology, and just because he missed the feeling. The two soon released each other, and headed towards the vet clinic that Hana worked at. They reached the building pretty quickly since they used the shinobi method of travel, jumping on people's houses. When they entered the office, they weren't expecting what they saw. the entire office was filled with patients and their owners. Naruto whistled in astonishment. Wow, that's a lot of patients, he spoke, before seeing a little brown-haired girl crying with what looked like a dog-out-or-fox hybrid in her lap, which looked menacing but cute at the same time. Sure is, Natsumi said before noticing a blur run by, realizing that Hana was doing her best to help the animals as fast as possible, but seemed to be overdoing it. Quote. Naru-kun, I'm gonna go see if Hana-chan needs any help, it looks like she could use it, she said, seeing Naruto nod before walking off to where the vet had run off to. Naruto just walked to the little blue girl and kneeled down to be eye level with her. Hey there, I'm Naruto, what's your name? He asked. My name is Sniffle. Mocha, the little girl responded in between cries. Ah, and who is your friend there? Yoshi. Ah, and do you know what is wrong with Yoshi? Mocha shook her head. No. He just, Sniffle, fell over last night crying, so my Car-san and I brought him, Sniffle, here, she explained. Well, I'm pretty good with animals, do you mind if I take a look? Maybe I can help, Naruto offered with a genuine smile. Mocha just looked through teary eyes to see Naruto's smile, and after seeing it without a second thought handed Yoshi over to him. Naruto adjusted the poor animal into his lap, and used a diagnostic jutsu on the animal, the glow of his hand making the girl look in awe, and worry about what he was doing. Hey, Yoshi, can you hear me? Naruto asked, making the girl lightly laugh between sobs at his antics at trying to talk to the animal. Hi, Yoshi, yipped, in response, with only Naruto understanding. Good, he seems to at least have some kitsune blood in him for me to be able to understand him. Naruto thought. Tell me what happened. Mocha-chan, she let me out of the house, and I decided to explore the village. But the family only just adopted me, and I didn't know people hated kitsunes here. The villagers kept yelling at me about looking like a Kyuubi thing, and then one of them threw a rock at me. I didn't think anything serious happened, but when I got home my ribs began to hurt until I couldn't take it anymore and fell over in pain. The pup explained, breathing heavily. Naruto sighed lowly in aggravation, not wanting to upset either Yoshi or Mocha over the stupidity that this village still held for him and his mate. The fools will learn later that their contempt and failure to move on will lead to much more dangerous problems in the future. He mused. Alright, Mocha-chan, can you get me some tissues? I found out what is wrong with Yoshi. Mocha looked at him confused but saw the determination in him and just nodded before going to the receptionist's desk to grab any tissues or towels she could find. She came back a minute later, to see Naruto's hand glowing once more. Arigato, Mocha-chan. I'm going to help Yoshi here for you, alright. But I need you to be a strong girl and turn around. What I'm about to do a young girl like you shouldn't see, okay? I promise I'll make him better for you. Naruto said sincerely. Arigato, Naruto-nisan. Please help Yoshi, she pleaded, before giving one final pet to the pup before turning around. Gomen, Yoshi, but some of your ribs are broken. I have to knock you out so I can repair it. But the next time you wake up you'll be in your home with Mocha-chan ne. He reassured, only getting a whimper of agreement from the pup. Naruto knocked the dog out and began his work. Now Naruto wasn't as scared as a vet by any means of the word, but because of his summoning contract with foxes, he decided it would be a good idea to learn some animal biology while he was learning human medicine too. And luckily Yoshi was similar enough one of the animals Naruto street USD the hardest, which allowed for a smoother treatment. It was only about 5 minutes later that Naruto called Mocha again. As promised, Mocha-chan, Naruto said with a smile, handing over a sleeping and bandaged Yoshi to the girl. Arigato, Naruto-nisan. Arigato, she yelled with happy tears flowing down her eyes, cradling Yoshi protectively in her arms. Not a problem, but you should go tell your Car-san so she doesn't have to worry anymore. When Yoshi wakes up he'll be a little sore but should be good as new in a few days. He explained, ruffling the girl's hair playfully, before she ran off into another part of the office. Naruto sighed in exasperation. If there was one part of the shinobi arts that he had to respect the most, it was medicine. Those shinobi have to be on top of the game for every single mission. Failure wasn't an option for these people. That combined with the necessary chakra control, patience, and understanding of the body made Naruto's respect for them the highest he could give to anyone. After all, it's easy to take a life, but it takes skill to save one. Car-san. Car-san. This was the man who helped me and saved Yoshi. Mocha yelled happily around the corner, while dragging her apparent mother by the dress. Alright, Mocha-chan, alright. The mother complied, while laughing at her daughter's antics. Gomen for the trouble, but arigato for helping my musu. She began before stopping her sentence, after noticing just who Mocha was pointing to in admiration. Mocha. The woman continued in a panicked voice before pulling the little girl behind her protectively. That thing didn't harm you or Yoshi, right? She asked, her voice filled with dread, making Mocha look at her confused. Of course not, Car-san. Naruto-Nisan just helped Yoshi get better, that's all. Mocha explained, before her mother quickly turned around, and kneeled so she was eye level. Mocha-chan, I don't want you going near that boy ever again, do you understand me? She ordered sternly. Or, Car-san, why? Naruto-Nisan was so nice. The mother shook Mocha's shoulders slightly. Mocha, that thing isn't nice. It's a duh. She stopped her sentence and took a breath to calm herself, lest she say something she'd regret. He isn't like the rest of us, Mocha-chan. And it's dangerous if you stay near him. Please just promise me you won't go near him again, Mocha. She asked, almost pleading to the girl with worried eyes. Mocha frowned at the prospect of never seeing Naruto again, but nodded nonetheless to her mother. Hi, Car-san. The mom let a small smile grace her lips. Good. Now let's get you and Yoshi home, NE. She offered and stood up, grabbing her daughter's hand to guide her to the exit, while eyeing Naruto warily and with hateful eyes. Sayonara, Naruto-Nisan, Mocha sadly whispered, looking at Naruto with saddened eyes, but Naruto heard it and simply waved back to her with a sad smile until the girl was out of sight. TSH, ignorant villagers. Naruto mentally growled, before standing up. He had just saved the girl's pet, and the mom had the audacity spite him because of it. If that's how they're going to react when I help them, I have a feeling showing them my real form is going to be a pain. He concluded, before heading towards the back of the clinic to see how his two females were doing. He had just turned into his adult form and was strolling the hallways trying to find them, but came up empty until he heard voices a few rooms down the hall and followed them. No, Natsumi-san, it's better if you use 2 fingers. Hana's muffled voice called out through the closed door. Why can't I use my fist or hand or something? Natsumi questioned. Because I know from experience that can be painful and uncomfortable. Hana growled out slightly. Fine, you'd think you'd be happier with me lending you an extra set of hands for this. Natsumi answered back nonchalantly. I'm very grateful and happy you are helping me out, so I can use my hands for other things. But I'm the most experienced with this kind of patient, so please just help me finish. Hana answered back with a groan. During this little dialogue, Naruto was frozen in place at the door leading to the room the girls were in. Okay, I know they aren't doing what I think they are doing, he thought, before hearing both girls groan loudly, making him stiffen more. But then again, this is going to bite me in the ass no matter what I do. He finished, mentally preparing himself for the beatdown he was about to receive. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said loudly, after opening the door. Naruto scoped out the room, to see what was going on and only found Hana working on a patient, and Natsumi in her adult form as well a few feet behind her with bloody gloves on her hands. Hey Arashi-kun, glad you could finally make it, Hana said happily while continuing to work on the unconscious cat. Gomen about not being able to greet you properly, but as you can see I have my hands full. Not a problem, but Anno, were you guys working on that cat the whole time? Hi. Though Natsumi-san here was getting uppity, she answered with a laugh, making Natsumi herself playfully growl. Why do you ask? Anno, no reason. I just heard you guys talking outside in the hall and sounded like something else was going on, so I thought I'd check up on you, he said, the faint blush that he was sporting, noticed by the 2 women. They looked at him quizzically, thinking back on what they had said. Hana just looked at him confused, seeing no strangeness in their words, and just went back to work on the cat. Unfortunately for Naruto, however, Natsumi had eventually caught on to his meaning, and smirked, which made him pale slightly. She went over to Hana, and as the Inuzuka continued to work, told her what Naruto thought about the conversation could have been about. By the end, Hana was blushing like a tomato in both embarrassment and anger. Kazama Arashi, you are lucky I'm working on this poor cat, or else I'd have to beat your ass for thinking that Natsumi was helping me to do that. I'm not even a damn lesbian. She shouted. Gomennasai. He shouted in apology. TSK Ara-kun thinking such perverted thoughts about us. Natsumi teased. But then again I suppose any guy would think that I mean we are pretty hot. You're just lucky you're already taking us out or there'd be hell to pay. She said with a maniacal grin. Although Hana, if you two do become mates, you realize we'll have to share him, and sometimes together, right? She asked the Inuzuka heir, who had suddenly stopped what she was doing. Truth be told, Hana had never actually thought about that fact, if Naruto and her relationship became permanent. Although polygamy was known to be used in Konoha to keep a struggling bloodline alive, she never really thought much about it when it came to her own relationship with a man. But now that both Natsumi and Naruto, though his being accidental, had planted the seed of reality in her mind, she quickly drifted off into thinking about the distant future and how things would be between all three of them if she became Naruto's mate along with Natsumi. Hana also wasn't a lesbian in any sense of the word either, she was simply able to appreciate the fairess for their beauty, like her friends Anko and Kurenai, who most of the male population considered hot. She too would also admit to them being attractive but never thought of them in any sexual way. And Natsumi was no different, though she would admit the demoness was the most beautiful female she had ever seen. She wasn't sexually attracted to her, but she could definitely appreciate the vixen's attributes. Although Hana was slightly self-conscious of the fact she wasn't as beautiful as Natsumi was. But as she thought about it more and more, she actually grew slightly more comfortable with the idea of the three of them perhaps having a threesome one night in the future. As long as she and Naruto had their time together, she wouldn't mind too much about sharing him at the same time with Natsumi. And if nothing else, Hana would admit she was experimental when it came to the bedroom, to a certain extent of course. Hi, I suppose you're right, Natsumi-san, it only makes sense that that will happen on occasion, Hana said quietly, not fully wanting to admit it still, but beginning to accept it as a possible inevitability in the future. Good. Now I think it's time we deal with these patients of yours so Ara-kun can take us out on that date before it gets too dark. The vixen asked in a happy tone, getting affirmative nods from the others. Naruto created a bunch of cage cushions and got the animals in their own separate rooms, leaving Natsumi and Hana to deal with the heavier work. Every time he entered a room, his clone would disperse and allow him to know the diagnosis. This process lasted a few more hours until all the animals were fixed up and either home with their owners or resting in the recovery ward. Well, I've certainly grown more respectful of you, Hana-chan, doing this every day, Naruto whistled in surprise. Arigato, Naruto-kun, she thanked with a smile and slight blush from the compliment. Okay, well, now that we are finished, shall we, lass? He asked jovially before he opened the door for his dates to get to Konoha's streets. Where you gonna take us, Ara-kun? Natsumi asked curiously. Haven't really decided, let's just go around and pick on a whim, he said with a laugh, making both females shake their head in exasperation, but with smiles on their faces. Naruto summoned another clone, gave it a kunai and piece of paper and sent it on a mission, before joining the girls in the street and headed towards the business area of the village. Their date went well, just talking about this and that, while receiving jealous glares from villagers. Naruto because of the two vixens he had with him, and the girls because of the foxy man they were with. It was getting slightly later in the evening by the time they left the little restaurant they decided on dining in. So they decided to walk Hana home before they left to get some rest for the exams, not that they really needed it. Arigato for the nice time, Naruto-kun, Natsumi-san, Hana said with a smile at the archway of her door. I'm just glad we could before the exam gets into full swing, he retorted, and Hana nodding, remembering their talk at the table about the invasion. Hana knew she and her mother needed to tell her clan about the invasion and needed as much time as possible, so she quickly moved close and gave Naruto a nice goodnight kiss, before stepping inside and closing the door with a final wave and smile. Well, aren't we lucky, Naru-kun, having two of the hottest females in this entire village all to yourself? Natsumi teased, with a snicker. Perhaps fate is just making up for lost time. He responded with a ghost of a smile, before wrapping his arms around his mate. But I certainly am lucky, Natsu-chan, he finished before kissing her cheek and shunshuning back to the Namika's mansion. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.